With the clock ticking down to Election Day, we're seeing fresh polling data from three critical battleground states, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. These new numbers show a race tighter than ever, and some surprising trends that could shape the final outcome. Could these traditionally blue states determine the future of American leadership? As we examine each state, you'll see where each candidate is gaining ground and where they're struggling. Stay tuned as we reveal how shifts among key voter groups and the latest campaign strategies are playing out in the battle for these crucial states. Let's start with Pennsylvania, the biggest prize among the three states with its 20 electoral votes. The poll reveals a dead heat between Harris and Trump, each capturing 48% of likely voters. This puts Pennsylvania firmly in the toss-up category, and history shows us that Pennsylvania voters can be incredibly decisive. Pennsylvania has played a pivotal role in recent elections. In 2016, Trump's narrow victory here marked a shift that helped deliver the White House. In 2020, Biden managed to reclaim it by engaging voters in urban centers like Philadelphia and Pittsburgh while holding steady in the suburbs. But will Harris be able to follow in his footsteps, or will Trump regain lost ground in rural areas? These questions make Pennsylvania's tight numbers a huge focal point in this race. We're also seeing a clear divide among Pennsylvania's urban, suburban, and rural voters. Harris is doing well in urban centers and maintaining an edge with suburban women. However, Trump is strong in rural areas and among non-college educated white voters, a core part of his base. These regional divides will play a big role in the final outcome. As both candidates target swing counties like Bucks and Montgomery, turnout in these areas could ultimately tip the scale. Next, let's look at Michigan, where Harris has a slight lead of 5 points, 48% to Trump's 43%. This state's 16 electoral votes are crucial, and recent campaigns are pulling out all stops to connect with Michigan's diverse population. Economic issues weigh heavily in Michigan, a state with a significant manufacturing base. The 2024 race is seeing both candidates attempt to woo voters by promising support for the local economy and jobs. Harris is emphasizing union support and job growth in clean energy, while Trump is pushing a message of economic revitalization by revamping manufacturing and securing better trade deals. Michigan's auto industry is a particular focus for both campaigns. Trump's visits to plants and his recent rally with factory workers underscores his efforts to capture the blue-collar vote. Harris, meanwhile, has appealed to workers through union backing and pledges for green jobs tied to the future of the automotive sector. These approaches highlight the candidates' contrasting views on the economy and how they each hope to gain the trust of Michigan's workforce. Harris leads strongly among African American voters with a 71-point advantage, though slightly below Biden's numbers in 2020. This demographic was essential in Biden's win and could play a similar role this year. However, some voters are feeling disengaged, and turnout will be crucial, especially in Detroit. Both campaigns are aware that high turnout in the African American community could solidify Michigan's outcome. Now we turn to Wisconsin, where Harris holds a slight 6-point advantage at 51% over Trump's 45%. While the lead may seem reassuring for the Harris campaign, Wisconsin is notorious for its unpredictable swings, as seen in past elections. In Wisconsin, as in many swing states, the urban-rural divide is stark. Harris holds strong leads in the urban centers of Madison and Milwaukee, while Trump is favored in more rural areas. This divide makes it difficult to predict Wisconsin's outcome, as minor shifts in turnout among key demographics could tip the balance. The gender gap in Wisconsin is notable, with Trump leading among men by 12 points, while Harris leads women by 21 points. This dynamic mirrors national trends and reflects a broader shift among suburban women who have increasingly turned toward the Democratic Party. Harris's campaign is particularly focused on issues of healthcare, education, and reproductive rights, all resonant themes for this demographic. Trump, on the other hand, has focused on economic and safety concerns, aiming to win back women who may be undecided. White, non-college educated voters continue to be a critical group in Wisconsin. While Trump still leads this demographic, his advantage has decreased slightly since 2020, which could be a sign of shifting loyalties. Wisconsin's undecided voters, particularly in smaller towns and working-class areas, could be the ultimate deciders of this state's outcome. An interesting aspect of these polls is how each candidate is perceived. Harris scores highly on honesty and trustworthiness, outperforming Trump in all three states. This aligns with her messaging around integrity and transparency, contrasting with Trump's strategy of portraying himself as a disruptor, willing to break conventions. Many voters also see Harris as someone who cares about people like you. This quality is central to her campaign, as she positions herself as a unifying force. However, Trump's base appreciates his unapologetic style and sees him as a strong leader who prioritizes change over convention. In her recent speech, Harris emphasized unity, stability, and a return to democratic values. Meanwhile, Trump is campaigning heavily on themes of change, particularly targeting dissatisfaction with current policies. These contrasting messages reflect broader divides among voters about the direction of the country. With early voting underway, Harris currently holds a lead among those who have already cast their ballots across all three states. Early voting has grown in popularity, especially among Democrats, and a strong early voting showing could be crucial for her. In Pennsylvania, around a quarter of likely voters have already voted, with Michigan and Wisconsin seeing even higher numbers. However, the race will likely be decided by turnout on Election Day. Key urban areas in Michigan and Pennsylvania and swing counties in Wisconsin will be watched closely. Both campaigns are engaging voters through ground efforts and last-minute ads targeting undecided and swing voters. Both campaigns are pulling out all stops in these final days. Harris is focusing on reinforcing her support among key demographics, with speeches targeting young voters, women, and urban centers. Trump is doubling down on messages aimed at his base, white, non-college educated voters in rural areas. Despite recent world events and intense campaigning, polling remains steady. Political analysts note that this stability might reflect deep-seated voter sentiments that have been building over years. However, small shifts among undecided voters or unexpected turnout patterns could lead to surprises. With only days remaining, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin could determine the fate of this election. As we watch these battleground states, every vote counts, and both campaigns are in a race against time to lock in their supporters. Will Harris be able to secure the blue wall, or will Trump make a comeback in these pivotal states? Stay tuned as we continue to cover the countdown to one of the most closely watched elections in modern history.